And we're live. Welcome to the Lakers Late Night Podcast. I am Anthony Irwin. My computer was, hey, we're back to the good old days. That's how I'm going to look at it.
It doesn't feel like a real podcast until your computer screws up.
Yeah, usually we get some kind of notification, some kind of ding that says you're live. This time it was just, all right, go ahead, screw it. Talk about the Lakers. So here we are. We're going to talk about the Lakers. They wind up losing tonight to the Knicks, to the New York Knicks, 90-87. The tank stays alive despite Kobe's best efforts and all that good stuff.
Well, actually.
I think before we do anything, we should tie up a couple loose ends and address rumors lately that you and I hate each other. I tried to Photoshop Harrison and I in that picture of Dwight and Kobe with Mike D'Antoni sitting right there, but I just figured let's just put all this out there in the open right now. I can't stand you. You can't stand me. Are we good?
Yeah, I feel like we show up, we do our jobs, we get through the season, and then Drew can, look at which one of us he wants to retain in free agency.
Pretty much. And it's probably going to be the one here who knows how to bend a hat's bill or brim or whatever it is.
I just don't have an old man hat that you bend.
It's probably going to be the guy wearing the company product, actually.
Product placement, y'all. SB Nation, it's a great site. You should go to it.
Oh, man. All right, so we're going to go ahead and start. Kobe or Byron's first quote after the game is that they didn't come ready to play or that they didn't start ready to play, which, as you pointed out before the show, is his job to figure out and get them ready to go, right? Well done, Byron.
Yeah, usually I think that kind of obviously the players have to show up and try, but generally, like when players like say the Bulls a couple years ago when they were horribly undermanned and they were still getting they were racking up way more wins than you would think based on their roster, that all the credit was going to Tom Thibodeau for getting those guys ready to play. So how does, when the Lakers don't show up ready to play, none of the blame for that, Byron Scott apparently thinks, falls on him?
Check Bill Orum's last tweet. Just go ahead and take a look at it.
So Byron Scott on why he didn't go back to the young core in the fourth quarter. They've had enough experience doing that so far. He liked how the second unit was playing. Guys, they're good. They've gotten, how many wins did they get with the young guys playing late in the games? They got like 2 or 3 in the last couple of weeks. That's good. That's fine. Do they really need more fourth quarter experience than that? I don't think so. I don't see why they would. D'Angelo just turned 20 last week. How much more experience does he really need? 2 weeks ago, how much more experience does he really need? Jordan Clarkson, perfect player in the clutch. Russell not making any more mistakes. Julius Randle has all that stuff figured out.
Oh man.
The second unit, the guys who really need that experience are 32-year-old Marcelo Huertas and 37-year-old Kobe Bryant. And, but we can go on down the list. Lou Williams, I don't know your age off the top of my head, but welcome back to the lineup.
I honestly, I'm watching. Byron is on my TV screen right now. I have it muted, obviously, because I'm recording a show. But he wasn't kidding there. He didn't have a kidding. Like you would think with a quote like that, he would be joking. There would be some kind of sarcasm going there.
What?
You would hope. You have to hope.
But based off of this season, would you really assume he was kidding? I would.
That's about as damning a quote as the Lakers can have, and this leads right into the point that we were going to talk about a little bit later in the show, but I think we should just switch it up. So backstory here is that the kids, Clarkson, Randall, Nance was the only one who played, and Russell all sat in the fourth quarter. against the Knicks in the 67th game of what do the Lakers have right now? A 12-win season. And you have to wonder, hey, what is the point in getting a win here when it actually hurts, right? That's what we talked about earlier and a couple games ago, is that I'm perfectly fine winning if it means the kids are playing and they're developing and they were the ones who won the game. But tonight was about to be that worst case scenario where the kids sit and the Lakers win. Like that, they're a Jose Calderon 3 away from being in that scenario, or Kobe's shot that damn near went in, right? That last shot, that ISO fadeaway on the baseline, that had half the ball was in the rim, right? And if that goes in, the Lakers, the tanking and all that happens. But the bigger thing for me is is there any connection between the head coach and the front office? And if not, why the hell is the head coach even there? If the front office and the head coach can't see eye to eye on anything, the front office has the capability to fire the damn head coach. And
well, you have to wonder if the front office, if their priority, I mean, maybe they don't have a problem with him doing this in certain cases. Like, you can make the argument that every once in a while it's fine for him to bench those guys if they aren't playing that well, which they weren't tonight. But he's done it so many times this season that it's like it's just a bad process. If he were just doing it every once in a while, I could kind of see that. But it's happened so many times this year that his priorities clearly aren't in the right place.
His priorities are to keep his job, right? And on that front, fine. If that's how he's going to talk about this, if his quote, if he came out and said, "Look, I'm working to keep my job," those reports that were floated out a couple weeks ago about me auditioning to keep this job, those are true. And as such, I am working to keep my job. And the best way for me to keep my job is apparently to keep those wins coming, right? Is to get as many wins as possible. But backing you up, Byron Scott just now, the first thing is obviously trying to win games. Then you want to try and continue development. Those aren't mutually exclusive, Byron. Those the players, the kids have been the best players on the team lately. Those two things can go hand in hand.
Also, with the thing of them, never mind. Totally lost it.
Well, what I'm saying though is for some reason, veteran equals wins, right? According to Byron. If that's the case, you better win tonight's game. If you're not going to win tonight's game and your number one priority is to win the game, then you're fired on that front too, right?
And then if he's auditioning, why would the front office have not told him that he wasn't if they've told him that he's going to be evaluated solely on wins and losses, then that's a real issue.
Right.
That's not what he should be being evaluated on.
Right. Keep on going, because you're about to make the point that we're kind of concerned about with the Lakers as a whole, as an organization.
Yeah, well, I think that what we were talking about going into the show was that tonight was kind of on a micro sense, a realization of our worst fears of what could happen this summer. I mean, fears is putting it a little strongly, but, with Jim Buss under his self-imposed deadline to get the Lakers back to the Western Conference Finals next summer, how do you know that he's not going to trade some of these young guys in a short-sighted move to try and get better immediately?
Right. I mean, at the end of the day, it's about self-preservation, it seems like, with the Lakers across the board. And the only person who doesn't have to worry about self-preservation is Jeannie Buss at the very top, who, when she talks about the basketball operations, she doesn't know what's going on. She has no idea what's going on there, right? So if the only person who has... Well, what I was going to say...
Enter Phil.
Right. And if the only person in your organization who has stability is somebody who is completely disconnected from the basketball operations and then has incentive to see some of these guys go, to bring in the guy you just mentioned, Phil Jackson, of course this is going to be a poorly run operation. Of course this isn't going to work out. Of course you have situations like tonight where Byron hauls off and says that winning in a 12-game season when you want to keep your pick comes before the development of your future. That's what happens. This is how this works out when you have such poor organization throughout a franchise. And for those who got, all hot and bothered when I said that this is one of the most poorly, or the least organized run teams or franchises in all professional sports, this is exactly what I'm talking about. We have no idea what's going on between these various levels. And it's not even like I'm expecting an explanation of everybody's roles within an organization. You're never going to get that because there's no reason to do so. But is it fair to ask for a little bit of clarity when you have crap like this going on? I'm ranting, but it's ridiculous. How does this work?
Yeah, I wouldn't go so far as to say that they're one of the worst run organizations in professional sports or even really the league, because there are NBA teams that have been like, look at Sacramento, who's been this bad for 10 years. And,
but the difference is the difference, though, and why I say right now they belong at or near the top of that list is this organization, as it currently is constituted, has only been here for 4 years, and in those 4 years, what has actually been accomplished, and anything that could be accomplished could be taken apart this summer so that Jim Buss can keep his job.
Well, that's okay. So that's fair that they haven't accomplished a lot, but at the same time, they've had a lot of moves since this current regime came in that have backfired, that a lot of people thought were going to be a lot better. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know that I just don't think that it's totally fair to say they're one of the worst run organizations. I think they've definitely had some things go wrong. I definitely don't think that everything's been perfect. But I think that that's, to a certain degree, valuing results over process. Right. Although this year, I will say the process has been bad.
Well, there is no process. There's no organizational process going on right now. I don't and it's not even I'm not saying that because I don't understand it, it doesn't exist. I'm not that self-centered. But somebody please try to explain what's going on. Is Byron auditioning for his job with wins and losses right now, or is he auditioning for this job as a legitimate fit moving forward next season? Right?
It would be nice to have clarity on that, but I don't see it coming because they aren't going to come out and say, yeah, okay.
No, I'm not asking for that's not the Laker way. That's not how they do things. They don't.
Well, it's not any team's way. They aren't going to come out and say that their coach needs to win X amount of games or needs to do this, and this, or he's fired this offseason. Right. I mean, maybe the Kings would do that to George Karl, but otherwise that's not going to happen.
The issue here is that there's such a disconnect between reality, logic, common sense, all that good stuff, and what's actually going on and what's actually being spoon-fed to the fan base. And that situation is can erode at any kind of stability that's been built up by the regime that preceded this one. Right? And that's the concern.
Yeah, and so you have to I think Darius Soriano put it really well the other day it was a couple weeks ago when these Phil Jackson rumors were more in full force and the topic of Jim Buss's deadline was a lot more out there. I just think that Jim Buss has to have his ownership cap on this offseason too, because and has to realize, okay, even if I don't meet this deadline, I don't want this team that I own to be a complete dumpster fire. And, if you trade a bunch of the young kids for like a kind of borderline star, ish, like super role player or whatever that you're hoping is going to attract Kevin Durant or someone else the next offseason, then that's kind of objectively a bad move. That's a bad move. If it works out, then great. But it's a bad move process-wise.
Right. Yeah.
That makes sense. And so he has to kind of think about how important keeping his job is to him versus the franchise's stability long term.
Right. Let's just really quick. We didn't really recap the game much. I honestly, the game, the first half, we're just refusing to acknowledge, occurred. That's just
let's just forget that happened.
Yeah, that didn't. nothing happened there. But for the game, the totals are not pretty. This game was not pretty at all for really anybody. Randall finishes with 7 points and 8 rebounds on 2 of 7 shooting. Clarkson finishes with 12 points on 6 of 16 shooting. Russell, 4 points on 1 of 7 shooting. Nance finishes with 4 points, 7 rebounds on 2 of 5 shooting. So, I mean, really, there's just all around statistically, and it's not going to be a pretty game if the team finishes with 87 total points. The concern, or what I was looking for heading into the game, was, hey, Huertas has been playing better. His becoming a point guard and playing like an actual point guard has led to a much more consistent effort offensively. And by effort, I don't mean, how hard people are playing, just what we're watching. It has been,
like the production.
Yeah, the production has been.
I was going to ask you, have you come around on the Flying Squirrel then? He's because you were not a Huertas fan at all. But he's I think he's been legitimately good the last couple. He's been helpful.
It hurt to get Lou back because it meant less time for Huertas in that role.
Yeah.
Right? And
they were trying to shoehorn Lou back in, and then I think that's kind of where the kids got disrupted, and they ended up losing their minutes because of it. And to be fair, Lou was kind of rolling at the end, but again, going back to process, how much does that really matter?
Yeah.
They know, the Lakers know what Lou can do. He doesn't need more experience to learn how to play late in games.
Right. And you have, the numbers, the points, the rebounds, the assists, the steals, all that stuff doesn't matter nearly as much as these numbers here. Julius Randle, 22 minutes. Jordan Clarkson, 22 minutes. D'Angelo Russell, 22 minutes. Larry Nance Jr. plays 26 minutes, so that's a decent number for him.
Yeah, but he closed. So I mean, that was like he was fine.
Yeah, and so if you have, I'm not saying that Nance shouldn't be playing more than those guys. I'm saying the 22 minutes apiece for Randall, Clarkson, and Russell, that cannot happen.
Yeah, those 4 are the guys that need to be playing.
Right. And
especially Randall, Nance. Like, how is the team not trying to figure out if Randall and Nance can play together a little more? Who cares if you end up losing games because of it? You're gonna that only helps you as a franchise.
Brandon Bass won't be back next year, right? It's pretty safe to say that.
Yeah, and so if you're gonna play him with Larry too, why not just play him and play Larry and Randall together?
Right.
Bass is a better rim protector than Randall is. I can see why that lineup is better right now, but who cares? You need to figure out if those 2 guys can play together.
Continuing on that front, Roy Hibbert won't be on the Lakers next year, right? Why?
I mean, I wouldn't think so.
I effing hope not. So if those 2 guys aren't going to be on the Lakers next year, and again, it's about how best can you situate this team moving forward? And the future is going to run through or be in the hands of Julius Randle, Jordan Clarkson, D'Angelo Russell, and Larry Nance Jr. And sure, as a bunch right now, that's not the most impressive list of names that you can put together. There are going to be trades. There are going to be free agent acquisitions. All that good stuff is going to take place. But for right now, the players on this current team, as currently constituted, that represent the future are those 4 guys. And if 3 of those 4 guys play 22 minutes, you're doing yourself a disservice when you're trying to figure out what you have moving forward. And beating the Knicks in some, on a random, Sunday night in the 67th game of one of the worst records that the franchise has ever put together, it just makes 0 sense on any perceptible level. And his quotes after, his being Byron's quotes after speak to or sound like a guy who doesn't care about the Lakers' future.
Yeah, well, the only argument that you could say was that maybe his actions are more reflective of, what he actually wants than his quotes. And the fact that he drew up a corner 3 for Kobe with 0.2 seconds left on the clock to win that game, I mean, either he is just the biggest Kobe worshipper on the planet, or like they were trying to lose that game because you can't get a shot off in that amount of time. What was he going to do? Punch it?
You have to throw something at the rim and hope they're dumb enough to foul while you tip a ball in.
That was amazing to me. Kobe was running off of a screen on the baseline to come and get the ball at the corner. With 0.2 left, you don't have enough time to catch and release.
Was he hoping for some like volleyball set or like a handball slap?
That's all they would have been able to do was just a little redirect at the rim.
Right. There's just I don't. And here's where I got so frustrated and why I wrote the article that I wrote for Silver Screen and Roll last week, or I think it was Saturday. Did it drop on Saturday or I forget?
Friday. Friday.
When I wrote that article, please stop crediting Byron Scott for the kids' development. It's because at some point tonight, when the game was on the line and these kids could get really important, and this is on repeat. This is exactly what I said last year about Jordan Clarkson when Ronnie effing Price was playing above him.
And like we were talking about this earlier this year. This is not new.
So for those, and I saw a couple articles out there, and you know, when you write stuff like that, when you put that narrative out there that this guy is the reason why these kids develop, you're completely ignoring everything that has to do with truth.
Well, it's just showing that you're just parroting what he tells the media every day.
Right.
You know, you're sitting them to develop them. Like, just because he says that that's why he's sitting them does not mean that that's what happened.
Oh, anywho. All right, so we'll go ahead. Do you think there is any truth to the Phil to LA stuff?
I can't totally discredit it. Number one, because I don't have enough relationships in the Lakers organizations to report on discrediting it, but just my thinking, my own personal opinion, I can definitely see it. There's just enough there that I definitely I would buy it. It's been reported it's not going to happen this summer, but I mean, can you not see it? Jim Buss doesn't reach his deadline. Jeannie has her excuse to oust him. And then all of a sudden, you know, here comes Phil Jackson with his contract opt-out, moving back to LA to save the Lakers, all this championship history he has here that they're going to talk about, just like they talked about with Byron when they hired him. And I'm not saying that Phil Jackson is going to do as bad of a job as Byron has done the last couple of years. Byron, without probably meaning to, has done a pretty good job, actually, at least helping the Lakers be in position to keep their picks. But Phil Jackson, what has he done as Knicks GM that everyone is so impressed with? They're not going to make the playoffs this year. He gave Carmelo a max deal, which is like, Carmelo's good, but there wasn't a whole lot of avenues forward through that. They tried to sign Greg Monroe this offseason to play power forward over Kristaps. Like, you know, the Porzingis pick was good. You have to give him credit for that. That was a nice find. They've done pretty well in the draft, but the guys that they've signed and tried to make moves for, I don't know that I love it.
I just realized tonight that Aaron Aflalo is still in the NBA.
Yeah.
That was
one of the Knicks are like an all-time roster. If that guy's still playing, they got Aflalo, Machine, Jose Calderon.
The savior of the Lakers franchise, according to those who want Phil Jackson back in Los Angeles, the savior of the Lakers franchise is going to be the same guy who thinks starting Stasa Vujacic in the year 2016 is a good idea.
Fired Derek Fisher in part because they were running too many pick and rolls, at least per Charlie Rosen, who has kind of been a Phil Jackson mouthpiece for most of, you know, Phil's NBA time.
Right. And I'm sorry.
And I mean that in the least negative connotation possible.
The other issue that you kind of have with Phil Jackson coming over here is that there's one thing you know flat out about Phil Jackson above everything else, is that he is adamant about proving that the triangle offense can still work in this current generation of NBA players. We're finding out more and more. I don't know if it's so much that the teams that are currently trying to run or that Phil Jackson has tried to run. Yeah, that is. Well, what I mean is, aside from Phil Jackson, right, teams that tried to run the triangle haven't done very well. The Kurt Rambis team in Minnesota and the Brian Shaw team in Denver. Those two situations did not play out very well.
Didn't Brian Shaw scrap it after like 20-something games in his first year or something?
Yep.
Yeah.
Pretty much. So we're finding out that the triangle is not going to work unless, look, if
you basically have to have the perfect roster for it.
Right.
And like the Knicks
and the Lakers
and
don't.
the Nuggets and the Timberwolves are not those things.
Right. And that's the thing, is that the Lakers do not have the roster who would work with it. The Lakers are very guard heavy. The future of the Lakers is very guard heavy. Guess what the triangle offense completely takes the ball out of? The two guards. Right?
Yeah.
And you know, if you're grading, or if you're thinking about Phil Jackson as a savior of the Lakers, and those two facts sit there staring you right in the face, you're ignoring facts, right?
Although about the triangle, I don't think that it would be the optimal showcase for Russell and Clarkson's talents, but they both can shoot now. And Russell at least can post up a little bit. You can kind of see how they'd fit there, but it would constrain them rather than making them look better. I think that like Russell could easily play the Derek Fisher role because he's a good shooter, and like he could just bring the ball down and throw it into the post and spot up, and he'd be really good at that. But that's not the best use of his talents.
Right. And here's the point I was going to make earlier that concerns me about this situation is Jeannie Buss is not at all connected to the basketball operations right now. Yet if she, or because it wasn't just that Jim Buss goes after this 3-year window and it doesn't work out for him. There was some talk that it's Mitch Kupchak too, right? And that everybody on the basketball operations just goes. And if somebody hasn't been connected to the basketball operations right now, is now tasked with finding those people's replacements, based on what experience is she going to find those people's replacements? Where do you even start? And if your place that you're going to start is with Phil Jackson, and you and I have gone over how that will probably go, the Lakers are screwed. I'm
going to say, I don't think he'd be the worst choice, but I don't know that that's a necessary road that they need to go down. I just I'm not in love with it. I don't think that it would be the worst thing in the world. Like they could definitely get a worse GM. That's totally possible, but I don't see him as the best choice either. And especially when you consider age, how much longer is he going to want to do this?
Right. The issue is, or not the issue, but to Kupchak and to Buss's credit, that front office has managed to turn in, when Dwight Howard left, they didn't have anything. They had one pick. There was their lone asset was Kobe, who wasn't going to get moved, making way too much money, and this one pick. And then, the Robert Sacres of the world and all that good stuff. And they turned that situation into the 4 guys that they have right now, a whole bunch of cap space that they'll be able to build with this offseason. And the organization is going in a decent and a positive direction. But that's all thrown out the door when, a Byron Scott is kept around a year longer. They make the move you kind of talk about. And that direction that could be very positive, that has been very productive, goes away. It's all gone. The door, just closed behind me right now, shuts.
As you got video bombed by your wife. Shout out to Jen.
Yeah, she's as sick of hearing me talk about this stuff as anybody, because that's all. I'm a sicko. This is all I talk about. This isn't okay. The way the Lakers are being run right now, and tonight's game completely encapsulated those fears.
Yeah.
All right. Anything that you want to add to the game before we have? I wanted to talk about one last thing.
Not necessarily related to the game, but Jen walking through reminded me. Shout out to Robert Sacre and his wife for just having a daughter. Congratulations to them from Lakers Late Night. But that's all I got.
Yeah,
I think that it's that game-winning play was just hilarious. Like that made me laugh out loud sitting in my chair. Like, just how?
I cheered.
There's only a couple plays you could draw up for the end of the game, and he picked none.
All right. So what I wanted to finish on, and what I find really interesting, and I'll be interested to see if he if anybody writes this story about the Kobe Carmelo relationship, and you and I talked about it a little bit earlier today. What I find the most interesting is the adulation that Kobe pours upon Carmelo comes from a very familiar place, right? In that he relates to Carmelo Anthony, because right now in the current NBA, there is nobody more like Kobe than Carmelo in terms of playing style, in terms of probably attitude, all that good stuff. You could say Russell Westbrook, just from an attitude standpoint, but
the personality thing, I'd argue, is closer to Westbrook, definitely.
But in terms of playing style, Kobe never. That's not how Kobe played. Russell is
never.
Vastly greater athlete that Kobe ever was. Right? He's Russell Westbrook's nuts. But
Russell Westbrook jumps off trampolines that aren't there. Like, yeah.
But Carmelo, on the other hand, he's an ISO wing who likes to play in the pinch post, who I think I know Kobe was a better passer. Kobe is a better overall player. But in terms of playing style and model, it is Carmelo. And I think when Kobe talks about Carmelo and calls him a brother and all that stuff, I think it's him kind of saying, hey, I feel sorry for this guy, because you could make the case that Carmelo Anthony is Kobe Bryant if he came along a decade later and never played with Shaq or Pau or whoever.
Yeah, well, and Mel is a little different to me because of the size thing. Mm-hmm. Because of his size, he's not really able to play that wing as well, the way that the league has shifted, mm-hmm. and he really should probably be a 4. Which actually, I thought it was interesting. The Knicks closed with that tonight. Their fans have been begging them to go to that kind of look with Carmelo and Kristaps, but Porzingis was out tonight. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, I can see what you're talking about with the Kobe Melo comparisons, though. Otherwise, I think that he's obviously. I think Kobe was probably a better defender when he actually used to defend, like 8 years ago or whatever it was, but than Carmelo ever was. But otherwise, I can see it in terms of playing style, just purely. I could see the comparison.
Well, and I would say, too, the coming along a decade later has to do with a rules thing that Kobe, before, the league went in a direction that it went with, the zone defenses and hand checking becoming such a priority, or the lack thereof becoming such a priority. Kobe was an absolute beast defensively. When he wanted to lock somebody down, he locked somebody down. But it came in part because of the way he was allowed to play. Whereas I think Carmelo's a good enough athlete where if he really wanted to, lock somebody down and was allowed to hand check and play physically, I don't see a situation. I think he could be at least a pretty good defender, not at Kobe's level, but at least pretty good. Right. And the thing I look at, too, with the Kobe Carmelo stuff is the kind of shots that Carmelo wants to get. He can shoot the 3-pointer, but he's going to shoot he's going to shoot long contested twos. That's where Kobe made his living.
Yep. They both like that idea of I'm going to dribble a little bit. I'm going to jab step. I'm going to post up, but I'm going to get you out of position and then shoot over you. That was their favorite thing.
Right. And so from that standpoint, I'd be interested in somebody asking Kobe that question that, hey, when you talk about Carmelo, when you call him a brother and all that good stuff, how much of that has to do with you can just kind of relate? And then lastly, in terms of personality, yes, Russell Westbrook is much closer to Kobe's on-court personality. But in terms of what Carmelo prioritizes, Carmelo was never going to take a pay cut. And athletes should never take a pay cut. And it's perfectly fine that Carmelo said he didn't want to. Same goes for Kobe. He said all along, I'm going to get every dollar I can possibly get because at the end of the day, the owners are going to do the same thing with me. And with how players are taking pay cuts right now, when you look at, how LeBron and Wade and Bosh all took major pay cuts to play together, Kobe probably wouldn't be able to win a ring with that mentality so long as star players have the opposite mentality, right? And when you see Carmelo's career arc go the way it did, I think you're kind of seeing how it would have played out for Kobe in this current era. And I think it's a really interesting comparison. I'd like to hear more from Kobe about that beyond like, oh yeah, it's just kind of cool to share the court with him one more time.
Yeah, like I love playing with him in the Olympics. He's like a little brother to me.
Right. Yeah, we know Kobe. Thank you.
Yeah.
But where's that coming from? All right. So anything that you have to add to the Kobe Carmelo stuff?
No, I mean, I feel bad because you did all the talking, and now I don't know that I have a counterpoint. I think it's a very interesting parallel that you made.
I talk way too much. It's because we haven't had these shows in a while, so it just becomes we got to get back
together because of our feud. But
yeah. All right, we're gonna get off the air here, and I'm gonna go ahead and block Harrison. So this is fortunately this is the last time I'll have to hear from Harrison until the Lakers play again. When do they play again?
Tuesday
when they play the Kings, the aforementioned Kings, who the Lakers are rivaling.
The battle of ineptitude.
Thank you. Yeah, that's why you get paid the big bucks now. All right. I will talk to everybody on Tuesday. Thank you very much for tuning in. This was a fun show. Go ahead, just scroll through some of those beat reporters' timelines for Byron's quotes. Did you find any more there that stuck out to you?
No, nothing jumped out. We pretty much hit the big ones.
Go ahead and make sure you guys read. I'm going to talk to Harrison at some point soon about the Robert Upshaw piece that he did on Silver Screen and Roll. Really tough situations going on there. But I think there's an interesting conversation that can kind of come about from that. So look forward to read Harrison's piece and then look forward to a conversation Harrison and I will have about that sometime soon.
Do your homework and then come to class a little later this week for the lecture.
I am the world's worst professor. All right. Thanks, Harrison.
All right. Thanks, Anthony.